Welcome back, folks, to Just a Dude Podcast. I'm your host, Nathan, here to give you the rundown on what's been shaking up the good old US of A this week. We've got wildfires, legal dramas, inaugurations, and more, so buckle up and let's dive right in. All right, let's kick things off with a story that's going to continue from last week, and it's been on everyone's mind, the devastating wildfires in Los Angeles. These fires have been nothing short of catastrophic, claiming at least 10 lives and displacing thousands. Neighborhoods have been reduced to ashes, and the emotional toll on the community is substantial. The loss of homes, possessions, and for some, loved ones, has left a scar on the city that will not soon heal. The response has been massive, with the National Guard stepping in to help local authorities and firefighters manage the chaos. They've been working around the clock, but the Santa Ana winds have not been kind, fanning the flames and complicating containment efforts. It's a testament to the bravery of those on the front lines, but also a stark reminder of how quickly nature can turn against us when conditions are right. Adding to the tragedy, there's been an arrest. An individual was reportedly caught using a blowtorch to start fires, which has ignited discussions on whether this will lead to arson charges. If it does, this could become a landmark case in how we handle arson during natural disasters, especially when it exacerbates an already dire situation. It raises questions about accountability, deterrence, and the protection of communities during such vulnerable times. The aftermath will be long and painful. Reconstruction is certain to take years, and the psychological impact on survivors and responders alike is immeasurable. It's a time for reflection on emergency preparedness, community support, and the increasingly urgent issue of climate change, which many point to as a factor in the intensity of these fires. Moving on to a political bombshell, Donald Trump's sentencing. After his conviction on 34 counts of business fraud related to hush money payments back in 2016, the court gave him an unconditional discharge. What's this mean? Well, this means despite the conviction, Trump walks away without any immediate legal consequences, allowing him to continue his political journey into the presidency. This decision has polarized opinions. Supporters see this as a victory, arguing that the legal system has once again failed to pin down Trump, suggesting he's above the law or that charges were politically motivated. Critics, however, view this as a miscarriage of justice, believing that no one should be above the law, especially not a president-elect. This verdict fuels debate on the integrity of the judicial system and its ability to hold powerful figures accountable. The implications of this sentencing extend beyond Trump itself. It touches on the broader theme of political accountability in America. It sets a precedent, or perhaps reinforces one, where high-profile figures might navigate legal issues with outcomes that are perceived as lenient by the public. This case will likely be cited in future discussions on legal precedents for political figures. As Trump prepares for his second term, this sentencing will shadow his presidency, influencing public trust, political discourse, and possibly even legislative actions aimed at ensuring better accountability in the future. It's a complex issue that intertwines law, politics, and public perception in ways that will echo through his administration. However, with the results of the November 5th election, the country sent a clear message that most either didn't believe these charges or they were not enough of a worry for folks to not elect Donald Trump. The significance of this trial on the election appears to have been very minimal. Now, speaking of Trump, let's talk about his inauguration. The preparations for this event have been nothing short of chaotic due to the overwhelming demand. The ticket sales for VIP access had to be cut off early because of the high interest, leaving some of Trump's biggest donors without those coveted passes. This scenario isn't just about who gets to sit where. It's a reflection of the political clout and the hierarchy within Trump's support base. Companies like Boeing and Google have made significant contributions to the inauguration fund, which raises eyebrows about the influence of corporate America on the incoming administration. It's a dance of power, money, and access, setting the tone for how this new presidency might engage with business interests. The inauguration itself is more than a ceremonial event. It's a public statement of unity or division. With Trump's controversial background, the event could either be seen as a moment of national healing or a further deepening of political divides. The optics of who attends, who's excluded, and how the event unfolds will be analyzed for what it says about the direction of our national politics. This event marks not only the beginning of Trump's term, but also sets expectations for how he will govern. Will he reach across the aisle? Or will this be a showcase for his base? The atmosphere at the inauguration might give us early clues. Switching gears to tech, we've got some news from Meta, or should I say, Mark Zuckerberg. He's called out users leaving his platforms over changes in fact-checking policies as virtue signaling. Meta decided to abandon its third-party fact-checking platform in favor of a community notes system, much like Elon Musk's approach on X. This shift has ignited a fierce debate on the role of social media in combating misinformation. Proponents of the new system argue that it democratizes fact-checking, empowering users to moderate content collectively. However, there's significant concerns that this could lead to an increase in misinformation, particularly around critical events like elections or health crisis, where accurate information is vital. The timing of this change is also noteworthy. Coming at a time when trust in social media platforms is already at an all-time low, critics see this as a cost-cutting measure or a way to sidestep responsibility for content moderation. It's a high-stakes gamble for Meta. If it fails, the platform could become a breeding ground for false narratives, impacting public discourse and possibly even democracy itself. Zuckerberg's comments about virtue signaling add another layer to this story, suggesting a tension between user expectations for ethical behavior from corporations and the practicalities of running a global tech giant. This policy change is a litmus test for how companies can navigate the murky waters of content moderation in an era where trust is as valuable as data. It's about time that someone realized the bias of the fact-checking program at Meta. People have complained for the last 4 years about the suppression of our First Amendment rights and free speech. This acknowledges that those rights were hampered by the force of the government and Meta. Could we now finally be on the precipice of multiple social media platforms that support free speech? Time will tell. On a more somber note, we lost a legend this week. Bob Euchre, known as Mr. Baseball, passed away at the age of 90. For those who might not know, Euchre was more than just a sports announcer. He was a cultural icon, bringing his distinctive humor and love for the game to fans for decades with the Milwaukee Brewers. His voice was a constant in baseball with a career that spanned over 50 years. Euchre's catchphrases and stories became part of the lore of baseball, making him as much a part of the sport as any great player. His contributions weren't just in broadcasting. He was also an actor, an author, and a personality who transcended sports. The tributes that have come in from across the sports world are a testament to his impact. From fellow broadcasters to players and fans, everyone has a story about Bob Euchre, illustrating how he touched the lives throughout his work. His passing marks the end of an era, leaving a void in the booth where his laughter and insights once filled the air. As we remember Bob Euchre, it's also a moment to reflect on how these figures shape our experiences with sports, providing not just commentary, but a sense of community, history, and joy. His legacy is one of bringing people together through the love of the game. Back to California, but this time let's talk about the aftermath of those wildfires. Kim Kardashian has taken to her platform to spotlight an often overlooked issue, the compensation of incarcerated firefighters. She's advocating for Governor Newsom to increase their wages, which are significantly lower than those of other firefighters despite the dangerous work they undertake. This issue brings to light the broader conversation about labor rights for inmates, who often perform some of the most hazardous jobs in society without commensurate pay or recognition. It's a stark example of how the justice system can exploit labor, raising ethical questions about rehabilitation versus exploitation. In reality, we should be seeing this as a fair payment for them in order to return their debt that is owed to society for the crimes that they have committed. Meanwhile, the media's handling of the crisis has come under scrutiny. There was some backlash against a reporter who interviewed Dennis Quaid while he was evacuating his home, with fans and observers calling out the media for being unprofessional and invasive at a time when sensitivity should prevail. It's a reminder of how media coverage can sometimes miss the mark in prioritizing sensationalism over empathy. These stories from California intertwine themes of justice, labor rights, and ethical journalism in the face of disaster. They challenge us to think about how we support those on the front lines of our emergencies, the rights of all workers, and the role of media in shaping public perception during crisis. Politics again with Pam Bondi's confirmation hearing. During this, she took a sharp jab at Adam Schiff from California, reminding him of his 2023 congressional censure. This wasn't just about settling scores, it was a strategic move to assert dominance or at least neutrality in a political environment that can be cutthroat. This hearing was less about policy and more about positioning. Bondi's approach shows how past actions can be leveraged for present political gain, a common tactic in Washington where every move is calculated to either maintain or gain power. It sets the tone for how she might navigate her role, focusing on not just her agenda, but also on managing relationships with adversaries. The exchange between Bondi and Schiff also highlights the ongoing tensions within the political landscape, where personal histories and political vendettas often influence legislative and administrative processes. This could foreshadow how contentious issues will be approached, with personal animosities potentially affecting policymaking. In the grand scheme, this incident is a microcosm of the broader political chess game, where every word can shift alliances or solidify them. It's a reminder that in politics, the past is never truly past. It's a tool for the present. One thing's for sure, Miss Bondi can definitely handle herself in tough situations. Turning to immigration, new H-1B visa regulations are set to kick in on January 17th of this year. The focus is on fairness and reducing fraud, aiming to ensure these visas go to those genuinely needed for specialized roles rather than being exploited for cheaper labor or to bypass hiring domestic workers. This change has stirred mixed reactions. On one side, there's support from those who believe it will protect American jobs and ensure that H-1B program serves its intended purpose of attracting top global talent. On the other, there's concern from the businesses and professionals in tech and other sectors where these visas are crucial for innovation and filling skill gaps. The policy could reshape the workforce composition in industries heavily reliant on international talent. Companies might need to rethink their recruitment strategies, potentially leading to a more robust local talent development, but also possibly slowing down innovation if the pool of skilled workers shrinks. It's a delicate balance between safeguarding domestic employment and fostering an environment that welcomes global expertise and innovation. The long-term effects of these regulations will be telling, potentially influencing not just business, but also international relations and perceptions of the U.S. as a destination for skilled professionals. Now, for some entertainment news with a legal twist. Animator Buck Woodall has filed a whopping $10 billion lawsuit against Disney, claiming that Moana 2 copies elements from his project, Bucky. This isn't about who gets credit, it's about the very essence of creativity and intellectual property in the entertainment industry. Woodall's allegations touch on the fine line between inspiration and appropriation, a debate as old as art itself. If this case goes to court, it could set a new precedent for how ideas are protected in animation, an industry where visual storytelling can lead to very similar outputs, even without direct copying. The lawsuit brings up questions about the creative process in major studios. How much of what we see on screen is truly original, and how much is built on the shoulders of less recognized creators? It's a David versus Goliath story, where the outcome could influence future creators' willingness to share their work or even pursue legal recourse against big studios. This legal battle is also a reflection of the broader issue within the creative industries regarding credit, composition, and the ethics of borrowing from others' work. It's a case that many in the arts will watch closely, as it could redefine the boundaries of creative ownership. Next, let's talk about something that affects what we eat. The ban on red dye number 3, due to the cancer risks that were found in studies. This decision has stirred up a political debate, especially with Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s upcoming administration, known for its focus on health and environmental issues. Critics argue this move is politically motivated, timed to align with the new administration's agenda, perhaps to appeal to voters focused on health and safety. Supporters, however, see it as a long overdue step towards protecting public health, highlighting the science that has long pointed to the dangers of this dye. The ban has been trending on X, with discussions ranging from the science behind food dyes to the economic impact on food producers who must now find alternatives. It's a conversation about consumer rights, corporate responsibility, and the role of the government in regulating what we consume. This story underscores the intersection of politics, public health, and consumer advocacy. It might just be the first of many changes in food policy under the new administration, signaling a shift towards more stringent health regulations in response to public demand and scientific evidence. In general, I question why any dyes need to be added to our food. We should be striving for no artificial items in our food, period. Finally, with Martin Luther King Jr. Day coming up on Monday, I wanted to share with you the transformative journey of this extraordinary man and why we celebrate his legacy with Martin Luther King Jr. Day. First, let's talk about the Montgomery bus boycott. Back in 1955, when Rosa Parks refused to give up her seat, it sparked a movement. Under King's leadership, this boycott not only endured for 381 days, but also led to a Supreme Court decision that ended segregation on buses. It was a testament to King's ability to rally people around nonviolent action. Then, in 1957, Dr. King co-founded the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, or SCLC. This organization became pivotal in organizing civil rights actions across the South, advocating for change through peaceful protests, much like Gandhi did in India. The SCLC was at the heart of major campaigns like the one in Birmingham, where the world saw the brutality of segregation. One of King's most defining moments was the 1963 March on Washington. There, he delivered the "I Have a Dream" speech, galvanizing not just America, but the world, advocating for civil, economic, and social rights. This march directly influenced the passage of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, a cornerstone in the fight against discrimination. In 1964, the world recognized King's effort with the Nobel Peace Prize. He was awarded for his nonviolent struggle against racial injustice, and he used the prize money to support civil rights work, showing his dedication wasn't for personal glory, but for the cause. His fight continued with the push for the Voting Rights Act of 1965. The Selma to Montgomery marches, especially the infamously violent Bloody Sunday, brought national attention to the suppression of black voters. The act that followed was a monumental step towards true democracy. And let's not forget how King broadened his activism. His Beyond Vietnam speech in 1967 connected the dots between racial injustice at home and the war abroad, criticizing U.S. policy and highlighting the global fight against oppression. Now, about Martin Luther King Jr. Day. It's more than just a day off. Observed every third Monday of January, it's a call to action. It celebrates the power of nonviolent activism, reminding us of the impact one can have without resorting to violence. It's also a day of service, encouraging us to volunteer, to give back, mirroring King's vision of a beloved community. This day serves as an educational opportunity as well. It's a chance for us to learn, teach, and discuss the civil rights movement, King's philosophy, and our ongoing journey towards equality. It symbolizes progress, the acknowledgement of past wrongs, and the commitment to betterment. But it's also a catalyst for reflection. We look at how far we've come since King's time and how much further we have yet to go. It's about evaluating our society's current state through the lens of his ideals of justice and equality. As King stated in his famous "I Have a Dream" speech, "I have a dream that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by their character." We should only look at others based on the content of their character and not their physical appearance. Lastly, the global impact of King's work means this day resonates far beyond U.S. borders. It's a day for everyone, everywhere, to reflect on human rights and the power of peaceful resistance. So to sum it up, Martin Luther King Jr. Day isn't just a tribute to a man, but a call to continue his work, to keep pushing for that dream of equality and justice for all. And there you have it, folks. The top stories from this last week, from tragedies to legal battles, from policy shifts to personal losses, and the accomplishments of Martin Luther King Jr. This has been a week full of news that impacts us all. Thanks for tuning in to Just a Dude podcast. Remember to subscribe, leave a review, and join us next week for more. You can also follow us on all major social media platforms. I'm Nathan, and until next week, stay informed, stay curious, and keep it real.